Hello, welcome back to Social Studies. We are going to continue our lessons on place. Remember, place is one of our 5 themes of geography. And this week we are talking about physical characteristics of a place. Next week we'll be talking about human characteristics of a place. We talked about different physical characteristics that you might see. For example, a river, trees, mountains, hills, a lake. These are items that were not placed here by humans. These formed naturally in nature. So we talked about those a little bit. And we talked about our different biomes. So our biomes are our animals, our climate, and our vegetation, all that live in one place together. So we have different ones located here that you can look back at again. But today, we're going to talk about climate. I'm going to read this passage here, and then we'll go into a little bit more about what climate is. When we study the weather of a place, we want to know if it's warm or cold, sunny or rainy. Climate is a physical characteristic of a place. Climate is the weather pattern of an area that develops over many years. While the weather can change in just a few hours, the climate takes hundreds, thousands, or even millions of years to change. Climate includes the average temperature, precipitation, which is rain, snow, sleet, and the wind in an area. We can understand the climate of the world by looking at a graph that shows the patterns in weather over 12 months. Let's look at a graph describing the climate zones around the world. This graph shows how many regions of the world have the same kind of climate. For example, 4 regions in the world have a tropical climate. So we're going to look at that, but I really want you to think about the difference between climate versus weather. I know we talked about this in science class, so just to give you a quick refresher. Weather is our day-to-day changes. So for example, I'm looking out my window right now and it's sunny. The sun is shining. It's still cold outside, but the sun is out. But if I think back to the day before, we had a big snowstorm. I could not see the sun at all. It was freezing outside. It was cold, and we had lots and lots of snow. That is the weather. It changes from day to day. Climate is our weather over a long period of time. So for example, in Michigan, we experience many different climates because of our seasons. So we experience in the winter, we expect it to be cold and snowy. In the summer, we expect it to be warm and hot. In the fall, we expect it to be cool. And in the spring, we expect it to be rainy and kind of mild temperatures. For those given seasons, we can guess of what we think the weather will be like during that season. This is because the climate is going to be the same. All right, we can look ahead, and this tells us what our weather will be like in the future based on our climate. Okay, so let's look at our map here, or our graph here. Which climate has the most regions? So these are our different climates here. We have tropical, dry, temperate, continental, and polar. We're going to take a look at what those might look like in just a minute here, but let's see which climate has the most regions. Each of these boxes is one region. So which one has the most? Well, if you said tropical, you would be correct. Look at all of these names here for our tropical climate. That is definitely the most. Next question, what are the climates of Africa? So we're going to go through each box and look for Africa. There it is. Africa is tropical. It is also dry. It is temperate. And that's it. So that means different parts of Africa, because Africa is a large continent, can have different climates. What are the climates of North America? Let's look. No tropical. North America is dry. It is temperate, continental, and polar. So we do experience all of those in North America, because think of it. Think about somewhere warm and sunny like Florida. Florida is in North America. And then we can also think of somewhere like Canada. Canada is also in North America, and that is very cold with a polar climate. All right, let's take a look at our next little passage here, climate maps. Each continent has many different climates. We use climate maps to learn about what different places are like. We can also see places are similar or different. People around the world make decisions about food, clothing, shelter based on the climate. Choose a type of climate from the climate map, research the climate, and suggest what clothing and shelter might be based on the climate. That bottom part is what our assignment will be later today. But think about that question. How can climate determine what we eat, what we wear, and our shelter? What do you think? How can climate determine what we wear, what we eat, and our shelter? Well, very good. I think you might have thought of some great answers there. So for example, if our climate is in a polar climate, which means it's very cold, you get lots of snow and freezing temperatures, you will probably be wearing snow pants, winter coats, really be bundled up good. And the food in your area might be specific to that climate that you live in. Where somewhere else like Florida, which would be a tropical climate, that you might be wearing shorts year-round. You might be wearing t-shirts. And the food can also change. For example, they have lots of different foods that grow very well in Florida that you might consume more than a different climate area. So let's look at our map here. So if we're looking at our map here, remember you always want to look at your parts. So let's look at this right here. Do you remember what this is called? If you said compass rose, you would be correct. We also have our scale, which is going to tell us that this little section here is 500 miles. So you can use this scale to measure out how far away items on our map actually are. And then lastly, our legend and key. This is going to tell us a lot of information about our map. So for example, everything in light green is going to be a tropical climate. So we see parts right over here, the lower tip of Florida. We see parts of Mexico and northern parts of South America are light green. And of course, there's more on our map too. Yellow is going to be dry. So think about our deserts that we have in America in the western middle part of our country here. Yellow is going to be dry. Parts of Africa, very dry, and Australia over here. Temperate is going to be our dark green. So anywhere you see this dark green is going to be our temperate climate. Like I said, I'll show you some pictures in just a moment that go over these a little bit more. Continental is going to be our, we'll call it red. Red is going to be where we are in Michigan. We are continental. And parts of Canada up here. And then also we have Russia over here. Lastly, polar is going to be that pink. So we have northern parts of Canada here, parts of Alaska. Really far up north is going to be our polar climates that we have here. So let's look at these climates a little bit more here. So starting with tropical here, this is a picture of what a tropical climate might look like. It's going to be warm and sunny out there. The temperature is typically going to be warm here. This does not mean, remember the difference between weather and climate, this does not mean it's going to be sunny every single day. But on average, which means most of the time, it will be warm and sunny. There still could be times when it rains, where it might be a little chilly, but overall the climate is warm and sunny. This also shows you some outfits that you might want to wear in a tropical climate. Next, we have a dry climate. Look at this picture here. Not a lot of sun there, right? Or, excuse me, not a lot of water there. Yes, a lot of sun here. So you might see some of these in, like I said, our western middle part of our United States here. And again, some different outfits that you could wear in this very hot and dry climate. Next is going to be temperate. So temperate is going to be more comfortable right here. You can see there's greenery, lots of vegetation, and on average it's going to be a very nice, cool climate. It's not going to get too hot, not going to get too cold in this temperate zone here. And more outfits that you could wear for that. Continental, remember that is where we are, and we experience all the seasons, right, in our continental zone. So we get our summers. They're not extremely hot summers like other places get. We can see weather in the 80s on some days, but our climate overall is going to be a nice summer, and then we also have our spring, fall, and winter. So we get to experience all the different seasons there. And our winter is not an extreme winter. It might seem like it that sometimes, but compared to polar climates, it is not as an extreme winter. So that's our next one is polar, where it is very, very cold. You get lots of snow, and overall temperatures on average will be very chilly in this polar climate. So you're going to want to bundle up very warm. All right, so this will be on your assignment for you to be able to look back on, as well as what I went over just now on Studies Weekly. So your job will be to select a climate that you would like to talk about. So I might pick tropical because it's kind of snowy out, and I am going to pretend I'm somewhere tropical. So my climate is tropical. After you decide on your climate, you are going to decide, or you're going to look back at your resources that I have provided below, and you are just going to tell me the continents and countries that your tropical climate is located at. So if I scroll down and I'm looking at my tropical one here, I can see that I have some different countries here. So that's part one of my job, to fill in that. I can also scroll down here, and if I'm looking at tropical, these are all the continents here, or many of the continents here, and some other locations that are located in our tropical climate zone. So that will be your job. You don't have to write all of these, but I would say give me at least 2. Oops, let me make my pen a little smaller. At least 2, because you will be writing your continents, and then you will also be writing your countries, which you find from this section up here. Next, the weather in my climate is. So overall, what is the weather going to be like in your climate? If you watch my video again, if you rewind it, I go through each of them. So I'm really helping you out with those answers there. Tropical, what would the weather be like in a tropical climate? I could write that down. Next, people in this climate wear. Oh, here's a great resource. I'll scroll back down, go to my tropical climate, and I have some great information of what we could wear. Next, people in this climate might live in. So what do you think people in these climates might live in? Just take your best guess there. And remember, we're talking about people. What would these people live in? Then lastly, draw a picture of what it might look like if you lived in the climate that you researched. Ooh, if I lived in a tropical climate, I know where I would draw a picture of myself. You will come up with your own. I'm not going to give answers here in case you choose to do tropical. All right, that is your assignment for today. When you are done, you will turn this back into Schoology for your teachers to look over. I hope you have a wonderful day today. Always reach out if you have questions. See you later. And tomorrow we will be taking our quiz on this topic. So be ready for that. We will review slightly before, and then be prepared to take your quiz. It's always a great idea to go back and watch your videos from your days before to really help you out in reviewing for that quiz.